Peace and welcome to the Sacred Enterprise YouTube channel. I am Basir Shi, and today we're going to pick up where we left off on the last video, where I was introducing the four Entrepersona archetypes. And these archetypes are the bedrock in terms of business psychology within the Sacred Enterprise system and the value ecosystem. So, picking up where we left off, understanding just a quick recap, the four entrepersonas are business archetypes, and we have the empowered transformer, the informed guide, the value generator, and the skilled builder, where the empowered transformer has a psychological focus on consensus within any particular enterprise. So, bonding, what we call soft skills, connection, the emotional state of clients, customers, anyone that you contract with. As for the informed guide, this individual has a more analysis minded aspect to them as it relates to any particular enterprise. So they're more about data, facts, figures, teaching, anything more cerebral or mental. And the value generator being a focus on synthesis, right? So collecting a lot of different information, people, hidden knowledge or knowledge of a market, synthesizing it all and creating or assisting in creating something of value, whether it is something that's revenue generating, whether it's something that is, profit centered, or something that is of value to the enterprise or the other, whether that other is a client, a customer, family member. Um, especially, we need to consider, it's especially important rather to consider that business development is self-development and self-development is business development. And what I mean by that is entrepreneurialism is the modern enlightenment path to understanding the self as well as the other. So your relationship to the other dictates your relationship to the client, to the customer, and to the market as a whole. So when we understand these four archetypes, when we understand the relationships that we create within ourselves, right, and how our mind functions as it relates to business, we also unlock the ability to perceive the relationships to our customer on a much deeper level beyond just objectifying them as a means to an end, right? As a means to profit or as a means to generating revenue purely, right? So this framework is a move away from the mechanistic thinking of traditional entrepreneurialism. So I want to make that plain and clear. And lastly, we have the skilled builder, which their focus is on Genesis. They are high motor individuals. Their focus is willpower, execution, systems, and they're more or less a collection of all of the entrepersona types. But their main focus is willpower, execution, systems, and the Genesis, right? So these individuals are launchers, right? They jump right in and get things done for you. So although the four entrepersonas are the bedrock of the system, there are other aspects that we will need to go over. So we're going to go ahead and add more nuance to the system. These were some slides that we went through on the last video, just explaining in a little bit more detail the four entrepersonas. So I highly recommend tapping in with the most previous video. This will be tagged in somewhere on the video or in the description, so you can go ahead and check out the previous video. So in continuing, why is one archetype not enough? Meaning, when you go through our Entrepersona archetype quiz, you're going to receive a report that tells you your business archetype, right? Your Entrepersona, who you are as a business psychological archetype. But the nuance to this system is understanding you actually have four layers. So you have four aspects of business psychology that operate within your life. And it represents the identity shifts that cross your inner life, the execution, the resilience, and your public presence, because context affects subjects, right? So how you are with your family, friends, and your close circle where you feel the most comfortable is 9 times out of 10 not the same as when you're in a social setting or a networking event or a boardroom or trying to close a client, right? And that's not the same as when you're in a business context versus a social context, a serious environment versus a more fun and free flowing environment. So context alters and brings forth, it calls out of us one of these four archetypes. But the secret is many times we can access one of these four archetypes if we understand ahead of time the environment that we're going into. So, in moving forward, this framework within the archetype system is called the seed, the tree, the farmer, and the fruit. That essentially is the architecture of these four layers of the Entrepersona archetypes, right? So, this framework is holistic in that it is something that catalyzes your identity growth and expression, but also is an excellent tool to help you align based on the context you find yourself in, whether that is with business and clients and sales, or whether it is in your personal life. So your entrepersona, right? Your main entrepersona, we would need to consider and remember that this is your seed. This is who you are at your core, right? And from there, you have four additional entrepersona archetypes that layer under or over the seed per se. So the seed archetype is the main one. It's the equivalent if you think of astrology when somebody says, "What's your sign?" And they say, "Oh, I'm a Pisces, I'm a Leo, I'm a Virgo." That would be the equivalent of the seed archetype in the entrepersona system. Secondly, the tree is how the seed is structured. If you think about a seed, it's buried underground. So that means your entrepersona archetype, your seed archetype, usually doesn't come forth unless you're in a really comfortable environment, unless it is your friends or your family. If you consider the notion of people saying like, "Oh, nobody knows the real me," or the people who know the real you is usually your family, right? Your friends, your significant other, the people that are super close to you. So in the business context, if you're the CEO, the people that know you the best are most likely like your board members or your assistants or the people that work directly with you, right? So understanding that this particular archetype gives you deep knowledge about what you may consider your comfort. But if you think about it, most of the time in the business context, we do not show our seed archetype. So that's super important to remember. We actually show our fruit archetype, but we're going to get to that. So the tree is how you structure your seed, right? So the seed has all of the information. Once planted, it sprouts and begins to generate the tree. So the tree entrepersona archetype, this particular layer, tells us how we structure our seed. In what ways do we use the energy from the seed to show up in the world? And this is a structural component. So how do you build your business? What type of business is it? Right? So understanding that layer is super important because it's the lattice upon which almost everything else condenses, right? So the farmer layer of the entrepersona archetypes is the agency, but it's also the pruning, it's the care of the business, of the structure. It is what is the key to activation for the entire system. If you notice, the farmer is the one that has the most agency. The seed is still, once planted, is planted. It can't remove itself. The tree, same thing. Once planted and once it's built out its structure, it can't change its own structure. The fruit can't pluck itself. It can't convert itself into fruit juice or any other product. The farmer has the agency in correcting, adjusting, protecting the tree, ensuring that the seed is taken care of with the nutrients, ensuring and paying attention to the time frame of which to pluck the fruit or take care of it or test the soil or test the tree, right? So the farmer has to deal with agency. This particular archetype layer has to do with self monitoring. So when you're in a business environment, your ability to self monitor and keep a goal in mind. So if you're at like a networking event, the farmer is the one who ahead of time and while at the particular event, whether you're closing a client, whether you're on a sales call, whether you're in a meeting, an interview, what have you, that the farmer is the one who curates the environment to ensure the best outcome. So the fruit layer of the entrepersona archetype is the expression, is the one that's witnessed. So if you think about it, you walk into a public market or you walk into your local grocery store, your interaction with this system is with the fruit, right? So this is the equivalent of a storefront. The fruit layer is the outer expression or the outer shell of the individual. This is usually who shows up in the public. So whether you're on live, whether you're in meetings, you're on YouTube, you're in with a client, the fruit layer is who is showing up. Whereas the seed layer is 9 times out of 10 a more internal, subconscious comfort layer, where the fruit is degrees of freedom away from the seed, and your ability to connect with the farmer, to connect with the tree from which you bought this particular fruit at the grocery store, is not likely. So this is your storefront. This is the representative that shows up in terms of the entrepersona layer. So and I kind of already explained this, but the seed entrepersona is the hidden gravitational center. So it's symbolic for meaning, values, and authenticity. It's your truest self, your truest entrepersona layer. Whereas the tree entrepersona is the structural form identity takes in work and leadership. So we kind of went over that, but it is the physical manifestation, the structure, the aspects that show up in terms of how the seed is used. And again, the farmer entrepersona is the regulator of the outcomes. So it involves discipline, regulating the nervous system, and follow through within any particular system, whether it is sales, whether it is personal, because business development is personal development is business development. So you're able to go between both of these worlds using these foundational layers. And again, the fruit entrepersona is the public facing symbolic persona. It is your representative, it's who shows up in representation of the entire system, in representation of the seed, the tree, and the farmer. And let me go back really quick. The fruit is also, when we talk about a representative, it's a reflection of the entire enterprise, right? So if you see a really nice fruit, it's sweet and it's healthy for you and it has a high mineral content and it's just really good versus another fruit that's lumpy and you test it, it doesn't have many minerals in it. It's a reflection of the entire process. So one doesn't necessarily have to be present to see your process. All you need to see is the fruit of your enterprise, right? So that's a good way to keep that in mind, that the fruit that of the enterprise represents what the farmer was doing. Was the farmer putting nutrients in the soil, taking care of the seed, right? Was he ensuring that the structure was sound? That all is going to show up in the fruit layer. So the key is to understand alignment versus misalignment patterns. And the key is coherence between these four levels, right? With the seed, the tree, the farmer, and the fruit operating in unity, you ensure that your ability to get to your goal, whether that is a revenue goal, a sales goal, personal life goal, understanding that decisions flow from essence at the core level to expression at the fruit level, right? And when this system or when these layers are fragmented, we get significant breakdowns. So when we understand that there is a level of coherence present, if any layer is out of sync, the different identities will end up competing for resources, right? So if you have internal conflict, you may have the seed seeking to be watered, but the farmer is focused on the fruit, not understanding that, well, the fruit can't be strong and worth selling if the seed isn't watered, right? So if there's this internal conflict between any of these four systems, you'll get internal competition. And that is expressed as believing in the market that you are in competition with other enterprises. Because that is the mechanistic traditional way we think of business and entrepreneurialism, that I'm competing in the market versus all it takes is alignment within the self, alignment within your enterprise, and you understand that there's no fragmentation. So if there's no internal fragmentation within your business, there's no external notion of scarcity or lack of resources that you have to compete with others and beat others, where that is more of an expression of the understanding that you're competing within yourself, right? So this is why I also talk about entrepreneurialism being a path to what we call modern enlightenment, not necessarily in the spiritual sense, but in the sense of increased awareness, right? So the key to most success is hyper awareness. If you're hyper aware, you can pivot faster, you can make adjustments faster, you learn faster, you're willing to admit you're wrong faster. Hyper awareness is the key to coherence. So lastly, we're actually going to cover in the next video another layered nuance of the 13 selves. This is the last major aspect of the entrepreneurial Entrepersona business archetype system. So we're going to talk about 13 layers divided into three steps or three foundational layers that will essentially give us the opportunity to put the entire system together and operate further. Now, if you would like to understand this further, I highly, highly recommend signing up and taking our Entrepersona quiz. And you'll basically be generated a report that shows you what your Entrepersona archetype is at the seed level. And then we'll be able to go into grave detail and generate a comprehensive report in terms of what your best business niches are, who you work best with, what archetypes you should work with, what are the potential pitfalls for you, and things like that. So stay tuned for the next video. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and be on the lookout for the next video, which is going to be covering in detail the 13 selves here. And until then, peace.